Why do some people seem to drift away from the world even when they don't want to? What makes someone choose solitude, not as a punishment, but as a path? There is a certain type of person who, from an early age, senses that they don't fully belong. They observe more than they speak. They analyze more than they react. To society, they might seem strange, distant, or even cold. But in reality, they are going through a process far deeper than most people realize. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the long, often painful journey to becoming your true self. And this path is often a lonely one. To illustrate this, let's take Wilhelm Stoner, the protagonist of John Williams' novel Stoner. Wilhelm never asked for solitude, but life led him there. The son of simple farmers, he grew up in silence, surrounded by hard work and the emptiness of a mechanical life. His path seemed predetermined: take over the family farm and repeat the routine of those who came before him. But then, at university, a book changed everything. For the first time, Wilhelm felt there was something beyond the world he knew. This was the beginning of an irreversible distance from the life he once expected. He traded fields for literature. He replaced a predictable life with an inner search for meaning. But this choice came at a cost. He lost friends. He couldn't connect with his wife. He felt like a stranger in his own life. The deeper he went into his journey, the more isolated he became. Yet Wilhelm wasn't unhappy. On the contrary, his solitude wasn't empty. It was a process, a calling, an inner search for his true identity. Carl Jung believed that those who step away from the collective do so because they are destined for something greater, a confrontation with their own psyche. But not all solitude leads to enlightenment. There is a fine line between introspection and dangerous isolation. If you've ever felt out of place in the world, this idea may change how you see your own life. Let's explore the psychology of the solitary according to Carl Jung. Why do some people from a young age feel different? Why do they look around and realize they don't fit into society's flow? For Jung, this isn't a mistake or coincidence, it's a call. Solitude isn't just being alone, it can be a necessary mental process for personal transformation. Wilhelm Stoner, as we saw, didn't choose isolation willingly. He was gradually led into an inner journey. But there is a deep reason behind this in Jungian theory. Jung identified a core process in human development: individuation. He believed every person is born fragmented, a mix of who they truly are and who society has conditioned them to be. Throughout life, people learn to fit in, follow rules, and hide parts of themselves to be accepted. But some people, for reasons they might not fully understand, feel that nothing superficial, status, recognition, or shallow relationships can satisfy them. These individuals often begin to drift slowly away from the collective. And this is where individuation begins. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process of integrating the psyche, discovering and accepting who you truly are. But this path isn't easy. It requires stepping away from social masks and confronting the parts of yourself you've repressed, something most people avoid. Here's the key point: individuation requires solitude, not necessarily physical isolation, but a psychological distance from external influences. Society naturally pushes everyone to conform, but someone pursuing individuation can't just be a mirror of others. Wilhelm Stoner went through exactly this. When he immersed himself in literature, he disconnected from the expectations of his family and society. He lost a sense of belonging, but discovered something most never find: inner purpose. Modern psychology confirms this. A 2019 study in personality and individual differences found that people who spend more time alone often develop higher self-awareness and creativity. When directed well, solitude isn't a problem. It's a necessary stage for personal growth. But there's a catch. This process of solitude can be dangerous if not approached carefully. Modern psychology warns that extreme isolation can lead to serious problems like depression, anxiety, or even cognitive decline. Carl Jung himself recognized this risk. He made a clear distinction between productive solitude, which fosters personal growth, and destructive isolation, where a person disconnects completely from reality. The secret, according to Jung, is purpose. Solitude must serve a purpose. It can't just be a refuge from the world. It has to be a space to build a real identity. Wilhelm Stoner withdrew from the world, but never lost his connection to literature. That was his anchor, his guide. If solitude is just emptiness, it becomes dangerous. But if it is a path to self-discovery, it can lead to enlightenment. Society often teaches us that being alone is something to avoid, but Jung saw it differently. Those who step away are not weak or failures, they're seeking something greater. Have you ever felt out of place? Noticed that some groups, conversations, or ambitions just don't make sense to you? If yes, perhaps you are on your own process of individuation. But where does this path lead? Most people run from solitude. They fill their lives with noise, distractions, and superficial interactions. Why? Because facing your own mind requires confronting truths you would rather avoid. Jung called one of the most critical stages of individuation the encounter with the shadow. This is when solitude becomes more than being alone. The shadow is the hidden part of your psyche, the traits, desires, and emotions society taught you to suppress. Everyone has a shadow. As children, we learn that certain behaviors are unacceptable, so we bury them in the unconscious. But burying doesn't erase them. If ignored, these traits grow and manifest in destructive ways. Isolation forces us to face this shadow. Alone, without distractions, we hear thoughts we usually ignore, frustrations, fears, resentments, and buried desires. Wilhelm Stoner experienced this intensely. The more he withdrew from superficial relationships, the more he faced his own inner void. He realized he might never be fully understood, never have a traditional family, never achieve the recognition he might have wanted. His distance from society freed him, but it also confronted him with his deepest wounds. Modern research supports this. A 2021 study in Frontiers in Psychology showed that periods of solitude increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain area linked to self-reflection. Being alone puts us in a state of intense inner analysis, which can be both liberating and painful. But what happens to those who refuse to face their shadow? It doesn't disappear. In fact, the more we repress it, the more it unconsciously controls our lives. This can appear as self-sabotage, sudden anger, failed relationships, or a constant sense of dissatisfaction even when everything seems fine on the surface. Those who ignore their shadow often seek escape through distractions, addictions, or shallow relationships, but this escape comes at a cost. A study in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions found that excessive social media use and quick entertainment consumption are linked to an inability to tolerate self-reflection. Wilhelm Stoner, however, did not run. He accepted his isolation and his insignificance in the eyes of the world. In doing so, he found a truth few achieve. He didn't need others' approval to exist. Jung believed that facing the shadow is a rite of passage. Those brave enough to look inward, without fear, discover something invaluable: authenticity. Most people spend their lives trying to fit in, trying to be what others expect. Those who embrace solitude and confront their flaws gain something rare: psychological freedom. Jung warned that individuation is an act of courage because it forces us to shatter the illusions we have built about ourselves. But what lies on the other side of this process? Many think solitude is the end of the journey, that those who step away are doomed to remain isolated forever. Jung saw it differently. Solitude is not a final destination, it is a step towards something much larger. Those who face their shadow and explore their psyche often find a paradox. The true journey doesn't end in isolation, but in returning to the world transformed. Solitude is necessary for self-discovery, but Jung cautioned against complete withdrawal. Too much isolation risks losing oneself. Self-knowledge should be a gateway, not a prison. So how can someone who has spent so much time apart from the world reconnect without losing themselves? William Stoner faced this challenge after years of emotional and intellectual isolation. He realized that his solitude didn't mean rejection of the world. It meant he had found a unique way to exist within it. He no longer needed external approval, but this didn't mean he should reject all human connection. Jungian theory gives a clear answer. True individuation is only complete when the individual carries their new identity into the world. Jung called this the archetype of the hero's return. In myths and ancient stories, the hero leaves on a solitary journey, faces inner and outer challenges, and then returns transformed. This isn't just symbolic, it reflects a real psychological process.
Science confirms it. A study published in the Journal of Personality found that people who undergo extended periods of introspection and isolation often develop greater emotional maturity and authenticity when they re-enter social life. Solitude, when used wisely, can make someone capable of forming deeper, more meaningful connections. But there's a challenge. Those who undergo individuation can no longer live unconsciously, blindly following social norms, yet they must also find a way to exist in the collective without suffocating themselves. Jung suggested 3 principles for balance. Maintain awareness of your identity, refusing to mold yourself to please others, but also avoiding total isolation. Choose quality relationships, connecting only with people who truly resonate with your new self, and serve the world with authenticity, using your self-understanding to impact life around you. William Stoner found his way to exist. He remained a solitary man, yet his passion for literature kept him tethered to reality. He didn't need external approval, but he didn't completely reject society. This is the key. Solitude is a tool, not a destination. Jung believed those who survive isolation emerge as truly free individuals. They don't follow groups blindly, obey rules without question, and live in illusions. True freedom doesn't mean rejecting the world, it means returning to it with clear eyes, knowing exactly who you are and what your place is. But who can really complete this journey? Solitude is a path to transformation, yes, but not everyone finds balance. Some people lose themselves in isolation. Not all who step away from the world can reintegrate without sacrificing their identity. Some achieve wisdom, others sink into darkness. Even Jung himself experienced this. At one point, he delved so deeply into the unconscious that he had visions, withdrawing from the world and exploring the mind's darkest corners. He nearly lost himself. What separates those who emerge stronger from those who never return? Jung warned of a danger. The human psyche isn't meant for prolonged isolation. There's a point where introspection stops being growth and becomes a vicious cycle. Science confirms it. A 2023 study in Nature Neuroscience showed that prolonged social isolation changes brain chemistry, lowering dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters linked to pleasure and well-being. The longer someone remains isolated, the harder it becomes to return to the world. William Stoner flirted with this abyss. His life was defined by distance and detachment. Yet unlike those who became lost, he found balance. His connection to literature kept him anchored to reality. He was solitary, but not exiled. And here's the key. Every solitary person needs an anchor. Jung believed that absolute isolation can dissolve the ego. Those who isolate too much lose the boundaries between reality and imagination, between self and other. This can lead to paranoia, extreme narcissism, or even madness. What separates the enlightened solitary from the lost one? The wise use solitude as a means, not an end. They use their alone time to understand themselves, but they know life happens in the balance between inner and outer worlds. The alienated hide in solitude out of fear. They seek escape, not self-knowledge. The wise have a purpose that keeps them connected to reality, through art, philosophy, science, or any meaningful pursuit. The alienated are trapped in endless cycles of thought, paranoia, and resentment, building nothing real. Jung said every person must face the unconscious, but never be consumed by it. If solitude is part of your life, you must ask yourself, are you using this time to grow or to run away? William Stoner lived as a solitary man, but never lost touch with reality. He accepted his role in the world, even without fully belonging. He understood that solitude wasn't a punishment, it was a path. Carl Jung taught that those who undergo this process can become rare, truly free individuals. But this freedom comes at a cost. You can never again live unconsciously.
Now that you understand this, the question is, what will you do with it? If you've reached this point, it means you are not like most people. Something inside you knows there is a path beyond the ordinary, beyond empty distractions and shallow conversations. You may already sense that solitude isn't a mistake, but a call. Most people will never reach this stage. They stop halfway, returning to their familiar lives, clinging to the false security of comfort. But you stayed. You absorbed the ideas, reflected on the concepts. This means you are already beyond the point of return. The choice is yours. You can walk away and continue as if nothing happened, or you can take the next step.
If this message resonated, don't ignore that impulse, embrace it. Wilhelm Stoner lived a life of solitude, but never disconnected from reality. He accepted his place in the world without fully belonging to it. He understood that solitude was a path, not a punishment. Carl Jung taught that those who follow this path can become rare, truly free individuals. But freedom comes at a cost, the price of never again living unconsciously. Solitude, when approached with purpose, transforms you. It forces confrontation with your shadow, with the parts of yourself you've hidden or repressed. It is painful, but it is necessary. It is not meant to trap you. It is meant to guide you. Those who navigate it successfully emerge stronger, wiser, and more authentic. They don't follow the crowd blindly or live in illusions. They return to the world with new eyes, fully aware of who they are and where they belong. But remember, not everyone can complete this journey. Some become lost in the darkness of isolation, unable to reintegrate without losing themselves. The difference lies in purpose, in having an anchor, and using solitude as a tool for growth rather than an escape. Wilhelm's anchor was literature. Yours might be art, philosophy, science, or any pursuit that connects you to reality. True freedom is not rejection of the world, but engagement with it from a place of understanding and authenticity. The wise solitary knows this. They confront themselves, embrace solitude, and then return to life transformed. The alienated never leave the prison of their mind. They hide from the world, but in doing so, they also hide from themselves. If you feel solitude as part of your life, ask yourself, are you running or growing? Are you using this time to escape or to discover your true self? The path is challenging, often lonely, but it can lead to something extraordinary. It can lead to inner freedom, authenticity, and a life lived with awareness. You have a choice. You can stay on the surface like most people, or you can embrace this journey, knowing that solitude is not a punishment, but a calling. It is a path to self-knowledge, a tool to become who you truly are. If something inside you resonates with this, don't ignore it. Take the next step, explore your own inner world and see where it leads. The journey is yours, but remember, freedom always comes with responsibility. You cannot return unchanged. You cannot live unconsciously again. Wilhelm Stoner's story shows that solitude can be a guide, a teacher, and a path to something rare. Carl Jung's psychology confirms it. The choice is yours. Will you simply watch, or will you step into this journey and become part of it?